What is good in the hood, everyone? This is your man's The One, and this is Just Sports. Let's talk about it. So, obviously, the first show was pretty exciting. Got to hang out with my good friend. Send it to me in my email. Okay, that is our second guest. I'm going to get to clicking pictures here or buttons here in a minute, but it's been a pretty good show. The first one started off really good. Now, this one, I think we're going to try to shake up the Indiana sports internet a little bit. It's a topic that's little dear to little close to my heart for my experiences being in the travel basketball scene on the girls' side. You know, a lot of you know that my daughter played travel basketball and high school basketball here in Indiana. So a lot of emotions still flow through that situation. But today we're going to talk a little bit about some of that dark side of travel sports. My experience again, specifically with basketball, and some stories and some conversations that I had with people who didn't want to be on the show but did want to talk about or share some of their experiences. So it should be fun, but it's not all bad. There are some good things about it, you know, and some of the reasons why we get into it. So today's episode is U Sports. Warning, enter at your own risk. You know what I mean? So I do have some friends coming in to help out to talk about this. It should be fun. My first guest, Mike. I've known him for a little bit, a little over a year, a bit on the social media. Share common interests, have common friends. We both love youth sports. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you bringing me in today.
All right. So I am going to try to multitask. So I am not ignoring you. I want to make sure I get Jay into the show. So what was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you, what is your background when it comes to youth sports?
I've been a IHSA official for 25 seasons. Just completed my 25th season, and coached for some feeder programs. Hamilton Southeastern during the Sydney Parish era. If everybody knows who she is, playing down at IU. She's the same age as one of my daughters. I coached my older daughter in the feeder program up there, up into middle school, where sadly she became one of the 70% of kids who dropped out of sports by the age of 13. And I've helped with local youth leagues and been a board member, and I've coached in the grassroots level for a couple of programs. Um, the Indiana Red Storm program run by Craig Eubanks and Phil Johnson, and also current varsity boys basketball coach at Franklin Community High School, Adrian Moss, when he ran his program, Indiana Locked In. And I also coached for him at in the feeder program on the boys' side at Franklin Community High School. And when my daughter was playing, I ran my own club team for 2 years.
Awesome. So you got it's like some extensive experience here when it comes to this side of things. Let's see, but I know I'm going to want to talk about some of your refereeing. So I am going to type and talk at the same.
Now I need to clarify, Damon. You want to talk about my officiating? You better take a number, buddy.
No, I don't. I want to. I want to know the perspective on some of these topics that we're going to have today from a referee side, because you know you guys got a different perspective than what most of us see. You know what I mean? Y'all get the crap from the parents, the coaches, and the kids. So that's going
You
to
said
be
that
an
you said that
interesting.
in the exact correct order.
All right, so I sent that email to him. Hopefully, I did it correctly while multitasking. I can do that very well on the court, but talking and typing is two different things. So, what we're going to actually jump right on in, and we can pull him up to speed. So, our first topic is, basically, let's get down to it. What I mean? What exactly are we playing? What the kids are playing for? What I mean? What exactly are they playing for? I had a conversation a little bit ago, a couple days ago, with a gentleman who our daughters play AAU for a couple years, competed against each other in high school, and she's now competing on the collegiate level. And we were chit chatting, and he had said something, and I had to kind of correct him a little bit, and I said it to a friend a couple months ago. The reason why these kids play, the reason why we have these kids play on this level, is to gain scholarships. It's not because it's fun. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, you want to have fun playing ball or doing whatever it is. But if you wanted to just play for fun, you play rec, you play intramural, you play with your buddies. But when you're playing on the level that you're spending the money that you're spending, you are playing for something more. You're playing for a scholarship. And I feel that a lot of these clubs and a lot of these teams or tournament organizations have lost contact of why these kids are playing at this level.
I think that's true. And I think as a parent, you really need to investigate the club or the program that you're getting involved with, because this is a huge money maker for these guys and these tournament directors and these clubs. It's a huge money grab. You start to look at the gate fees that parents are having to pay, the cost to get on the teams. And I've always said that travel basketball, we'll just use that as the umbrella, because you call it different things, AAU or whatever, but the travel basketball scene, I've always felt that it was somewhat uh, uh, the cost of it was less than other sports. Like, I have friends that have kids that play competitive soccer and travel soccer, and when I looked at, hey, we could put this team together, and it's $350, $400, and they're telling me that their soccer programs are $2,000. I mean, I always thought, well, basketball is pretty economical. That's the word I was looking for. So, yeah, you need to investigate what you're doing, and I do agree that I think we live in a society today where it's instant access and instant gratification. And you look at the explosion. Look right now with the Caitlin Clark explosion in the college game, the women's college game. It's as popular as it's ever been, and it's thanks to her, Angel Reese, Juju from USC. I mean, there's some fantastic basketball players, and they're getting the media coverage, and people see that, and it's like, hey, I want to do that. We live in a world right now where it's attraction marketing, and they see that type of thing, and they, obviously, I think I just read that Caitlin Clark just signed an 8-figure deal with Nike. People want that. That's attraction marketing. Hey, my kid can get there. The problem with it is everybody's kid ain't that good.
Agreed. And I mean, that's a subject we'll discuss here in a little bit. I agree with the too many, the pool has been watered down, or the product has been watered down a little bit when it comes to, at least on the girl side. Like, when my daughter started, let's see, what is this? Our freshman year in college. So this would have been third grade, past rec league. So fourth grade is when she started exploring the more competitive side of basketball. When they get away from the wristbands and match colors up, and you play that way. She started to get a little more competitive on it. So we've seen the explosion of women's basketball here in Indiana. I want to say from the roots. Now, I know they played back when I was in high school because I was one of the few players on the men's team who did go watch the girls play. You know, when I was in college, I did go watch the girls play because it was basketball and I enjoyed the way they played the game. Because I think the girls' game is probably the last fundamentally sound basketball, as in skills wise, when it comes to basketball. Because, you know, with the boys, it's all about how far you can shoot or how high you can jump. But with the girls' game, it's more about how well you play the game. So
Right.
it's good to see. Now, we've seen the explosion from the beginning to where it is now, where you had maybe 3 boys clubs that offered girls teams, and then you had 3 good teams playing against a whole bunch of not very good teams. You know what I mean? So, and it started to get better. And then I want to say somewhere around just let's see, the pandemic was 2020. So what about 2015 maybe? 2016? She's been in it 6 years. She was in it 6 years. So yeah, so about then the explosion came, you know, with clubs being built on just female basketball. You know what I mean? So there's a couple of them now, but there were only about 2. And then they came in, and I think they had a market that they needed, and then there was a market that was exploited off of it.
I would agree with that. And to hit on a comment you made about the fundamental side of it, yeah, there's not very many people out here that are playing this game that play above the rim and have the ability and athletic skill to do what some of these guys players do. And I used to tell people, if you want, and this goes into the time frame that you were talking about, if you want to learn the game, I think the IQ game, you know, the basketball IQ on the women's game is where you watch them to watch that. And you see, as you said, a more fundamental skill set, because the girls aren't jumping out of the gym. And until recently, they're not shooting from the logo, which I've got some feelings about that. I mean, I don't know that those are always good shots, but I get their coach will tell you if it goes in, it's a good shot. But yeah, the fundamental side of it is always what I liked with the girls' game, because you gotta be able to dribble both hands with your head up. You got to see the floor. You got to be able to pass the ball and find the open players. So I agree with you on the fundamental side of that.
Mm-hmm. But getting back to our little topic right here for this one, yeah, I mean that's kind of the reason why they play at this level. You know what I mean? Because I tell kids that I've worked with and that I've coached, that I'm around, you know, there's a reason for AAU basketball and there's a reason for high school basketball. And how you get recruited is by both. They come to see you during the summer and travel basketball because of your skill set, because all of the best players are playing there. So there is no, there's politics, but there is no high school politics of getting kids on the team that can't dribble. You know what I mean? And then you get into high school situations where they're just trying to fill the team so they can have a team. You know what I mean? So it's a different level. I tell them, you get recruited on skill in AAU, and you get recruited on leadership in high school basketball.
I think that's fair. I do think that's fair. That's a very good statement.
I mean, because we can't fully evaluate your skill set in a high school game. I mean, unless you're like here in Indianapolis, you're at the highest level. You know what I mean? And there's Carmel versus Lawrence Central, Lawrence North versus Ben Davis, North Central versus, you know what I mean? You don't get that everywhere. I mean, you get a lot of Bedford Norris versus Valparaiso. It's not going to be the same skill set evaluation. But when you go to the AAU level, everybody on those teams were stars on their high school team. So it's a better way to evaluate your talent. But then when they come to see you at high school, they're watching your body language. They're watching how you react to different situations that your coach puts you in. How are you on the sideline when things aren't going your way? How do you react to coach? How do you lead players that are clearly not on your level? So I think both of them are needed, but they're valued different.
Yeah, that's true. You look at the AAU scene, and as you said, you're playing against your top two. You're bringing in the top two kids off of several school teams to form that AAU team, and that's where your talent's really getting evaluated. That's what the college recruiters are looking at: is how do you play against top level competition, and as you said on the high school thing, how do you lead the kids that are around you? The senior or the junior, the upperclassmen. How are they handling the underclassmen when the game's tight and their kids make a mistake, they turn the ball over? How are you helping those kids, get through that stressful time and lead?
Right. So this one is going to transition into our next subject, is when we're coming to choosing the right club or right team or trainer that you want to work for. So, why they play? Okay. Scenario. You have a team, right? You have 8 girls, 9 girls on this team. Top level team in the state, in the division that you play in. So you got the divisions, you got the EYBL for Nike, the Gauntlet for Adidas, and you have I don't even know what it's called for Under Armour, but that's the new one. The newest one is the Under Armour circuit. So you got these girls, right? You have 2 players on this team. One is top 15 ESPN. The other one is top 25 ESPN. Both of them have already committed and signed their letter of intent to their schools. If the idea of this club and this team is to get the exposure for all of these girls, why are you still focusing on these 2 girls running your team?
I have long referred to that as the trophy chase. I think what's happening is that these, maybe not at this level, but I think some kids are playing to appease their parents. There's a lot of pressure put on the kids by the parents. We're going to invest this money for these trainers and these club teams or high level shoe circuit teams, and we're going to get that college scholarship. So you're paying for the scholarship one way or the other, right? But I agree with you that if this is supposed to be about the kids, and you have those 2 top level players who already have their scholarships in hand, let's help these other kids who are talented, but maybe, as you said, you got a 15 and a 25. Maybe you've got a 75 ranked player or a 100 ranked player in the class in the nation, which is still great, but let's help them. And I think that's a great question, David. Why are we still running around with these 2? And I guess I would ask it, if I've already got my scholarship, why don't I just go be a kid for a year and take some time off, just work out and shoot? I mean, unless you just really love to play. I mean, because now, we're playing 4 to 6 games in a weekend. Is that really good for the body? That goes into a whole other topic. Is it good physically? Is it good to play that many games?
Right. Yeah. Now I'm gonna make sure I put this asterisk out here, because I'm not gonna say any names of kids. Definitely would never do that, because I'm a fan of all of these young women and what they're doing on the next level. And I'm not gonna say name of clubs. I have gotten permission from my daughter to be a little direct if I wanted to, because of how she was treated by per se club, but I'm still not going to do it, because out of respect, some of the friends that I still have who have kids that play at these clubs. But that's the thing that I was talking, that brings up this conversation part, choosing the right team and club. You want to choose the team that fits your family, because it is your family that is the team. And you don't want to choose, you don't want to let the team choose you. How did I put that? Where do I have it over? I got it written down because I had it put down pretty cool. I lost it. Where'd he go? Focus that it did, mental health. Oh, best find the team that fits your family, not the one that best fits them. You know what I mean? Don't go to the team because you are a piece that they're missing. Go to a team that because they fit the piece that you're missing in your family. Because it's your family who ultimately is giving up what they have for you to do this type of travel.
Yeah,
So, mhm.
you wanting to, we're talking about player development, and there's still, even though we're talking about some top level players, we're still talking about player development, basketball. Maybe at this level, it's more about learning the basketball IQ aspect of it rather than the actual physical skill of dribble, pass, shoot. Learning to read defenses, learning to read what the defender is doing. Do I cut under or over the screen? Do I pull up? Do I drive and kick? What is it? Um, and I see a lot. We're bringing our team is bringing in kids from all over the place. Maybe they're flying them in. Even some programs I've heard about, and we're just rolling the balls out on game day and playing. So when you talk about trying to find the right fit, ask the questions: are these teams practicing? And if they're practicing, how often are they practicing? Or are we just showing up every weekend or every other weekend and playing games? You got to investigate that as a parent, especially if you're one of those ones that doesn't have the scholarship yet. And are we trying to get better? Especially if you're a younger kid, you're middle school and you're underclassmen. Are we practicing and getting better, or are we just playing?
Y'all definitely have been a part of the Fly Kids In scenario. Definitely have been a part of that. I know the 1 year she played on the top EYBL team here in the state, and I mean there was girls who were on the team that we never saw. And then however you come on the team and then start playing more than kids who are on the team. So again, what is the exposure for? Are you chasing trophies? Are you chasing that Nike shoe deal to make sure you still get the gear and all the advantages of being the EYBL? Or are you actually trying to get these kids what they signed up for? You know what I mean? Those are like tournament teams. And then you flip over to clubs. And then it's the same thing. Like this club was started because there was nothing for girls. So everything about this club was entitled in the name. It was supposed to be for girls by girls, to teach them all of these aspects of life as being a female athlete, being a female basketball player, all of those good things that they sell you at the door. You know what I mean? And then one of the, and I mean, I'm trying hard not to be a little biased, but I am, because she was one of the backbone members of starting this club, not just team, but club. Like this was the only team that you had in seventh grade. Now you have probably about 30 teams coming down from 17U all the way down to your 9Us or whatever you want to go into. But it was a club. You train, you play, you do all this stuff together. And she was one of the backbones. And you want to just push her off or use her as a practice dummy or glorified hype man for your golden goose.
Yeah, and I think and I'm going to use the term, the dirtiness of club basketball is probably at the lower levels than it is at the higher level. Um, and like you, I've been around several programs. I know a lot of people, just like you do. I'm not going to say any names, but my oldest is 24, so that gives you a time perspective. When she was playing in, second, third, fourth grade, going into middle school up into seventh grade, a club director told me, you need to get into this. You can make $60,000-$70,000 a year on the side doing this. And I was like, that's not why I'm coaching youth sports, man. That's, I did it because I loved it. I had something to give. I understood the game. Been an official. So I had a different perspective as a coach. And that, if I got a $50 Dick's Sporting Goods card from my team parents at the end of the year, hey, that's just a little extra for me to go buy some more basketballs. I didn't do it because of the money. And I do really feel like it, as you said, it's really watered down. If you can find, really, it used to be if you had 10 kids and $300, you put a team together, but now you don't even need 10 kids anymore.
Not really. It's like, and that's where it goes where, you're taking away the winners aspect that kids learn from a competitive sport. Like if your kid, like my daughter wasn't always good. She had times in her career where, she's been cut. She's been struggling. We worked hard. She's worked hard to put herself in those situations. You know what I mean? And I don't think that it's fair to those kids who want to be good, who want to drive, who have that drive, for somebody to say, well, your kid's not good enough, and then that person goes, well, I'll show you. I'll just start my own team. You know what I mean? And it just keeps going and just keeps going. And then the fees for these clubs. I hadn't really paid attention to it until we started talking about, but the fees. So she played travel ball for 6 years. So that was her seventh grade year going into her senior year, because they play the summer after their junior year and the summer before their senior year. So 6 years, $1,500 minimum. That was the start, and I think it went up a couple years later. So roughly about $9,000 for this membership into this club to train and play games and get exposure. So you started with one team, 12 girls, $1,500. Next year you have 10 teams. 6 years later you have 30 teams. So are you doing it for the money, or are you doing it for the reasons that you told everybody that you were doing it for? From the examples that I've heard over the last 3 weeks from current players and their parents, not very happy. Because again, you found you a little golden goose that's paid to be recruited by ESPN. People don't see that side, that these kids have to pay to be recruited. They forget about all of that stuff.
There is something to be said, and I know we're kind of talking about your elite level players, but there is something to be said, as you hit on, playing the rec league. And I was thinking about this before we came on today, like the Little League World Series, and we talk about baseball for a second on the boys side, the Little League World Series, and you hear people talk about, oh, our travel team would whoop those kids. Well, you probably would, because you got some of the better players from all these different teams, and these are kids from the same community. They go to the same school, and there's something to be said for that game and the rec league, just having fun. It's just, it saddens me that this has become a business all the way down to your 10, 11, 12-year-olds. You got recruiting services or ranking services ranking third grade players. 70% of kids drop out of youth sports by the age of 13. Why the hell are we ranking third graders? What's the point?
And girls is higher than that.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, why are we ranking? We're ranking them in a sport that they probably won't even play. Like some of these kids do play 2 and 3 different sports. So you're ranking them in basketball, and they'll probably end up being a wide receiver in football.
I can remember the parent of a kid that I coached. upset that 2 years in a row her daughter made the B team. And my daughter, I'll say she was a perennial B team player. It was fine. But you know what she gained from that? She got a lot of playing time, not because dad was the coach, but she would always rank out pretty close to making A team. But I told her she was upset. Hey, I made the B team. Well, you got more playing time. You learned to become a leader. And then she became one of those statistics, as I said. This parent ended up calling me after evaluations. Hey, how come my daughter made the B team? I said, well, that's what the evaluators, that's where they placed her. Mind you, this kid was a 3-sport athlete. She played softball. She also played volleyball, and she was a basketball player. And she was okay at all three. I think she was a better softball player than any of the other sports. And upset in the 4th and 5th grade that we're on the B team. Just be glad your kid wasn't one that got cut, is what I told her. But fast forward, she ended up playing in high school and ended up playing softball in college. But you were worried about her being on the B team in 4th, 5th grade. It's just be glad your kids have the ability to play and that there's opportunity for them. So that was my take on that.
Check your spam. But I agree with you.
Are you getting messages?
Yeah, I'm getting messages. So I would say because sometimes
we're going on somebody's hit list.
Yeah. That was one to check their spam because sometimes it sends it. I don't know. But so on that B team thing, I think it's good to have an A, a B. C, let's say that's your fundamental team and you are trying to build these kids' skills up. And, sometimes that might be your rec level team. They probably should pay a little bit less. But I like the A and B because that B has something to work for. Because my daughter, 7th grade, except for that first team, but then for Carmel Club, for Carmel Pups, she was always on the B team. Always on the B team. Kept being put on the B team. And she kept working. And she kept working. Then she met a young lady named Ashlyn Shade. And then they played together since 3rd grade, all the way up to Ashlyn went to Lara.
The Luminary.
The prep school.
Luminar. Yeah, the prep school.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic player, by the way.
Yeah, and I think they still communicate to even today, those group, because she was one of those beginning. She was, they started, I watched her from 3rd grade develop. She was going to be whatever she was going to be, regardless of what situation she was in. I've never seen a kid with a drive that she has, personally. But I like the B, because if you're not on the B, if you don't make the A, sometimes you don't. If you just make the A all the time, sometimes you have nothing to work for. So she was B, right. B. And the next thing you know, she's a really good player. Got a lot of people looking at her. A couple write-ups, a couple things like that. So I like the B given something to work for, even on a AAU level. Because you have those platinums and the silvers and the gold. I like those levels, and that takes us into the tournaments and stuff. That keeps the competitive the competitive flow going, because we've seen games in tournaments that's are you sure these teams are in the same division?
Yeah, that when we were playing Indie Girls Hoops League was the Sunday league that we played in. It was school-based travel, as they called it. So your HSE played the Carmels, the Pikes, and the North Centrals, at the lower level, and that organization always did a really good job, much better than these spring and summer tournaments do. But they would have an A and a B, and sometimes a C division. And the way that they always ran it was, you kind of had an idea that some of your bigger schools, like your Carmels and HSE and North Central LNs of the world, Pike, you kind of knew that bigger, your 4A schools were going to probably have better teams than some of the smaller schools. And you would start out, and let's say you went, let's say the first weekend you matched up, you played 2 games on Sunday, and then you take a week off and come back in another 2 weeks and play 2 more. So the first weekend, let's say we go 2-0. The second weekend, we're playing other 2-0 teams, and let's say that weekend we went 1-1. So now our record's 3-1. And the third weekend, we're playing teams that have a mirrored record, and they would do a good job of keeping those together. Unlike these grassroots tournaments, and I've coached on teams that have lost badly. One of my club teams was essentially a C team. I had a group of 5th grade boys, and full disclosure, we were getting mopped up in these tournaments by 40 and 50 points. We just weren't I had great kids, don't get me wrong. They just weren't very skilled at basketball. But we improved, and that's always the goal for a youth coach ought to be to improve your kid. So when we start talking about the A and the B team, as you said, that gives your kids an opportunity to shoot for something, just like your JV and your varsity. I mean, if you're good, you're going to be on that higher level team anyway. But it gives you something to strive for, and that brings me to another comment that, if you're on these teams and you don't like it, you don't like it because your kid's not playing. The answer isn't, I'm gonna go find another team, or I'm gonna go start my own team. That's not the answer, because that's not how life works. And you're always going to have things in life that from being in the adult world, just like I do. Sometimes we work with people that we have trouble getting along with, and maybe there's some, as you said, the politics of that stuff going on, and you're going to have to deal with that. And I think we're doing a disservice to these kids at a young age by just saying, hey, it's okay, you can just move. But that goes into a whole other topic, transfer portal at the NCAA level.
Ooh.
It's it just kind of goes on and on. We could talk for hours about all this stuff, man.
Yeah, I believe that transfer. That's a whole show in its own. But yeah, I'm kind of I want to say 70-30 on moving teams, because sometimes the fit just isn't right. You know what I mean? And as a parent, it's difficult because you don't want to control where your kid is. And then sometimes it's hard for the kid to make that decision where it's not good for them. It might be a little toxic and you want to move somewhere else, but you have friends that you've been doing this grind with for so long, and you don't want to, there's a lot that goes into that. And I never really thought about that so much, because us boys, we have a different way of thinking than young ladies. You know what I mean? We think, and this is no negative or nothing on either side, we think physically, they think emotionally. You know what I mean? Dudes would be like, man, I can care less. But they are concerned about how their teammates feel. You know what I mean? So those things have to be taken into account. The mental side of it, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, is a little more than what people really think about. And, when you get into these tournaments, like you say, where you talked earlier about 4 and 5 games in a weekend, shit, sometimes it's 4 or 5 games in a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it can be.
And it can be. And what kind of drove me a little bit more to push this show is a friend of mine posted on Twitter about what he is getting ready to pay to sit and watch his kid or a friend's kid play travel basketball, play AAU basketball on a circuit level. If I was a gym owner, right now, hell yeah, I'd build a gym and completely solely work on youth sports, because it's ridiculous. $70 for a weekend per person, $25 a day per person, and they're charging kids. So you know what I mean?
Unbelievable.
So you pay So you pay $1,500 for your fees for to be on this team. Okay, you get some. If you're on the circuit, if you're on the high level circuit, if you're on the EYBAR or the Gauntlet or the Under Armour, okay, so you get gear, you get shoes. You might not have to pay for that expense depending on which team that you're on. Okay, so you paid $1,500 for club fees. You've paid for the tournament. You've paid for the lodging at the tournament because unless you're in Indianapolis, it's very rare that you're going to be at home a lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
We get blessed a little bit. You know what I mean? Being in Indiana, middle, centrally located, we get a lot of tournaments. So you're lodging, you're paying for parking because they're charging you for parking. You're paying to get in the door. So you've already spent what, $5,000 and you haven't even eaten yet.
Yeah. And then you got to eat concession food, right?
That's terrible. Not even open.
Some stale pretzels and cold nacho cheese, right?
Oh man, like we went up to where we go. Granted, I'm gonna give it an asterisk. We went up to Chicago for the Nike Championships up in downtown Chicago. Granted, it was the COVID one, you know what I mean, where it was super spaced out, masked everywhere, you know what I mean? But Lord have mercy, was this, like, I was so angry with the city of Chicago, and I paid.
Look, Chicago's expensive anyway. Chicago's expensive anyway, and then you want to add in some AAU basketball? Holy hell!
Oh man! And then you get these teams that always want to stay at these fan. Like, listen, you know, me and my wife, we just started over, man. I can't keep paying these. Y'all stay over there. I'm gonna stay over here.
you forgot to mention that the contracted hotel by the tournament. Right, so they're getting a cut of that too. There's another piece of the pie they're getting.
Another piece of the pie. Like, yeah, I mean, it's. So, are you really exposing these kids? Or are you exposing a large tax write-off because they're getting tax write-off with it being a youth thing? You know what I mean? So, are you doing this for the kids? I mean, if you were, you're not charging $140 for a family going to watch their sibling play a sport.
Yeah, and if some of the socioeconomics of this, you have a lot of kids that come from a more depressed income, I'll say. They're not, we're not dealing with, not every family has six-figure income. I'll just put it that way. And I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but that's the reality of it. And sometimes it's a single parent, and now we're asking, like you said, $70 to get in for what? I mean, I just want to watch my kid play, and then are you streaming it? Because hey, I'm not going to be able. Sometimes it's going to be like I can't come watch because it's a lot of money.
Oh man, I don't even want to get on those streaming services. I think the streaming services might be better now, but again, when we started that major travel scene for her, when all that work popped off and we was, on that EYBL team, those top two teams, you know what I mean? We hit the COVID, and the streaming services were new, man, and they were terrible. They were I just paid all this money for you to tell me a 10-year-old is recording this game? Let alone in some of these tournaments, I have to provide the people to run the clock and the scoreboard.
Oh yeah, and they're not unbiased, right? They got some they've got some, what do I want to say, vested interest.
Wow.
And as an official, that's a topic we could talk about too. So.
Oh man, I've seen it. I've been at that table, man. I don't ever want to be at that table because
look, Let me tell you something about that table real quick. The first person in the bleachers to cry, the score is wrong, the score is wrong. That's the last person who's volunteering to sit their ass at the table and do that job, okay?
Man, they always yelling, start the clock. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
listen, I didn't want to do this. I wanted to watch my kid play. You know what I mean? And I'm
But
this
none
close.
of you jokers wanted to.
All y'all was at the concession stand. Y'all knew it was going to go down. You know what I mean? And I
Convenient.
feel like if I'm paying 25, 30 bucks, 40 bucks to get at the door, I should not be running the clock.
Or if you're willing to run the clock, then you shouldn't have to pay. How about
No, I
that?
shouldn't have to pay. I agree. I agree. But I can't pay attention at the clock because I'll get into the game. I didn't. How many fouls we got? I have no idea.
The foul count, there's supposed to be 6 fouls. Well, I'm glad they went to the 5 fouls, man.
You know what I mean? Like, I do got a question for you as a referee. Um, one, time, as in, why the hell is college and some of AAU the only people playing halves and not quarters?
That's a good question. I will tell you that I like what the National Federation has done on the high school level with the go moving from the 1-and-1 on the 17 foul to making it 2 shots on 5. I think it's cleaned up the game a little bit. I think it's also sped up the game. Um, high school they adopt some of their things from the NCAA. But yeah, I don't understand why men's college is still doing halves, and I have no idea why on the AAU side, because if our high school, we're talking high school level, they're playing 4 quarters and we're going to the bonus on 5 team fouls. Why are we playing halves? I don't know if it's there's guys that like to stretch that time between quarters and stretch those timeouts longer than they're supposed to be. So it could have something to do with the time commitment, because your tournaments, they're starting games every hour and 5 minutes, and they need to get started right on time because they got so many games to go in a day. So it could have something to do with that. I don't know.
Oh man, that used to piss me off as a coach, bro. Referee is like, yeah, man, I got 4 more games, man. I got to keep this on time. Like, hey, bro, come on, man. We just paid $350 for this team to be in this tournament. You can at least call the game. You know what I
It
mean?
is
Like,
a terrible conundrum to be under. And I used to work at Best Choice Fieldhouse when I
oh
first got
my
started in this 25 years ago, and I treated whatever level I was working at. I worked my first ever year of officiating was in Perry Meridian Youth League down here on the south side of Indy. And then I got involved with Lawrence, and then I found the field house and I started going there. And then I moved into doing junior high school and then eventually high school. And it is a terrible feeling to want to call the game the way it's supposed to be called, knowing that they're your partner. And I'm not saying everybody, but there are some guys that do exactly what you say. Hey, we just got to keep that clock moving. Don't be calling fouls. And that spirals into a lot of bad shit.
man, I got told, hey, man, I'm only getting paid $20 a game, bro. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, come on, man. Like, and I don't want to knock all of them because I know about 80 refs. You know what I mean? Like, cause I played with a lot of those guys. You know what I mean? And this is they say it's different. Like, but yeah, man.
Yeah,
but
I will say this for the crowd that thinks that the referee cares who's winning that game. We don't care. Okay, we just don't. We're there because we love the game. Former players, guys that coach. I know several guys that coach on the grassroots level that officiate. Uh, we just don't care. We're there because we love the game and we want to be a part of it. And the sloppier the play, I don't care how competent of an official you are. The sloppier the game, the harder it is to call, because now you're having to pick and choose your calls. And then there's that whole thing we just talked about. Hey, the clock, we got to keep that clock moving, stay on schedule because the tournament director needs that game to keep going. So we don't care who's winning. You know, you see the foul call. We don't get it. I'm going to tell you, we know when we call a bad game, and we don't need any help from the bleachers. And you know, it's just the fact of it.
Listen, I was harder on the officials as a player than I ever was as a dad and a coach. Like, I remember when I first started coaching, like when my oldest son, like before him, like he was still a young guy, I coached a team out of Lawrence. So a couple guys, a buddy of mine got me hooked up with them. Darnell Hillman's son, a good friend of mine, he got me hooked up with them. I coached them, and it was interesting. You know, I mean, it has some stories. I got my first tech, and I understood then, like, you know what? I can't really coach like I played. So I changed a little bit. It was a little easier the second time around when I coached girls. I got a little easier on the refs.
Here's the thing too, man. Your team, as a coach, your team is going to take on your persona. So if you're griping about the officials, you're doing two things. You're telling your players it's okay to gripe, and you're telling your parents it's okay to gripe. And the second thing is you're not focused where you need to be focused, and that's on your kids and coaching them. Now, I agree. As a coach, you know, and an official, mind you, my entire youth sports coaching career has been during my officiating career. So a lot of those guys, like you said, they were guys that I've suited up with. So I would try to have fun with them. And, you know, there's times where you don't agree with them. You were not always going to agree, but never in the history of this game as a coach, player, or official. Now, I can't say never because now we got instant replay. And what is it? The replay center in Secaucus for the NBA.
Oh, yes.
But you griping from the bleachers, or the kid who's everything's and one. No, it was you trying to drive on two defenders and throwing up a garbage shot and missing. It wasn't an and one. It's a terrible shot, right? But we're not changing the call because mom and dad said, "Oh, that's a foul. Come on, that's a foul." No, if parents would understand one thing, and I when my daughter got to 6th grade, it was the first time I hadn't coached her because she got to play for her intermediate school team. That was the first time where I just, you know, I didn't have to worry about drawing up play sets or worrying about playing time for the players. I could just go in the bleachers and sit and watch the game and enjoy it. I didn't have to worry about foul calls because I knew what it was like for those guys on there. It's 6th grade girls basketball. It's sloppy. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't get called. But I just sat in
the game will never end.
Yeah. It's funny because you hear the on one flip of the coin, it's, hey, call the fouls. And then when you start calling the fouls, it's, hey, let them play. You're calling too much. Well, what is it? Which way do you want it? You know, you can't call everything on the lower level. You just can't.
I know one thing you said, probably the last thing for this one when it comes to cost and tournaments, we didn't even factor in the training. You know, the amount of money that outside the clubs, outside of the thing is your personal trainer. You know what I mean? Like, I dabbled in the training sector for a little bit, but it was only for certain kids that most wouldn't want to train, or the high school said they couldn't do this or do that. And then pretty much, well, doing that, I put, see, the kids that I work with, out of the 8 kids, 6 of them played college level basketball, some Division I, some Division III. I say not 7 because my daughter could have, but she just chose, like, she was done with the whole scene altogether. So, I mean, I kind of knew what I was talking about when it comes to recruiting and training the kids. I always look for the ones that people didn't want. But training outside of the racket that we see in club and the tournaments, training will either be the next one. You know what I mean? You see some of the prices that these guys are charging. Like, I like the guys who love the game and want to give back to what the game gave them. I mean, I could tell you two guys who I would absolutely, if someone called me and said, who can I send my kid to work with? I tell you two guys right off the bat, Shabaka Lands and Ron Rutland Jr. I send you those two guys because they do it for the right reasons. You know what I mean? It's like I don't feel like you should be charging. I mean, yeah, you got gym time. Yeah, I get that. You know what I mean? But it's still about the kid, right? You're supposed to be developing the kid's skill, not your name. And I've seen a lot of trainers, especially a lot of trainers around this area. You got these big old facilities. You got all these great machines and stuff like that. And you forgot how to teach these kids how to play the game of basketball. You know what I mean? All that stuff that you're doing, like who really dribbles like hot sauce in the game? Nobody. The point of dribbling is to get from A to B or to get a better angle on the pass.
or free yourself up for a shot, right?
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I agree with you. I know those two names, and I haven't worked with them or anything, but I do know those names. And the truth of the matter is, yeah, you do need, as a trainer, if you don't have your own facility or tie in to a school to do that kind of thing, then you do have an expense with the gym, and you do need to cover that. And I am willing to say that your time is money. You know, we're not doing this unless you're a volunteer coach like myself. You're not really in it for the money. You're doing it to help the kids. So it's that is something else. But you know, you go back to the amount of money that you paid for the program you're into. A lot of those programs have started to roll some of these trainers in, which is okay. And you know, but the fact of the matter is, as you know, your daughter is one of the fortunate ones if she's playing Division I. There's very few players. I mean, I used to know the number of high school players that would graduate in a given year and the number of available scholarships going into the next level. And quite frankly, it's just not that many. Everybody thinks they're D1, but there are opportunities at other levels. And, not everybody's going to be as fortunate as kids that go D1 to go D1. And that's just a sad, hard truth of it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, again, unfortunately, I would have wished she'd have went, but she went ahead and hung it up. She retired. So she's back to playing basketball for fun instead of this ridiculous pressure and things that you can get put on you, like the things that we're going to talk about real quick before we end. I wanted to make sure we talk about some of the really important things, the sacrifice and the mental health side of it. You know what I mean? People don't understand the sacrifice that you have to give up for playing on such a competitive level, be it basketball, be it football, which we are experiencing now with my youngest son, who is on the football scene. A little less I want to say a little less costly. It's just more upfront on equipment right away than the other ones tend to draw it out. But, the sacrifices that you have to give up, and you have to address the mental side of it. You see so many kids burn out because they haven't dealt with or haven't had that mental release that you get from being so driven and so competitive in your work. And I think people need to pay attention to those things, like family vacations. If you are on one of those travel teams, high-level travel teams, oh yeah, you better plan your vacations around them tournaments.
Yeah, especially if you go to like Virginia Beach, that becomes your vacation. And even on a smaller scale, when I was running my club team, we were running from Indianapolis to Lafayette twice a month on just to play in one-day shootouts, because I didn't want to play, like we talked about earlier, I don't want to play 6, 7, 8 games in a weekend and tie up people's entire weekend. So we did the one-day shootouts, but that's an all-day adventure. You gotta leave Indianapolis to drive to Lafayette. It's an hour drive, and then we're up there and we're playing sometimes 3 games. Sometimes we get asked to play a 4th. It's an all-day thing, and it's a time commitment. So yeah, you are definitely right especially on the major travel scene or travel team scene. You better plan those vacations around them tournaments, or bundle the vacation after the weekend tournament and stay the week and then come home.
I mean, and that's just, some of the sacrifices that just come up the front that you notice, that you see automatically off the top. You're not talking about the sacrifices of the commutes that you go through, the hours that you sit, the hours that you watch, the hours that you consult because of things that you've seen, that you have to address when it comes to sacrifices. Like, like one of the biggest travel basketball weekends is Mother's Day.
That's just what every mom wants to do, right?
That's what every mom wants to do, is sit it. And like I say in the title of Necessary Evil, you have an end game, and you have to go through all of this just to get to you, just to be a percentage thought of your end game. And
Right.
that sends you into the mental health side. Like these kids put in hours and hours and hours and hours of work while they don't get a release mentally to let all their pressures out. It's always driven this. They don't get time to go to the park. They don't get time to go to the mall or just to chill by the pool and doing those things. The young kids who are able to succeed, I think they have a good parental background where they're structuring in those releases. I know I spoke of Ashlyn earlier. That was one thing I will say about her parents. They always had it, as hard as she works, she always had a smidget of her life that was outside of basketball. Times that, and I've did it with my daughters, times that we just took the basketball away. Hey, I need that. Go do something.
Yeah.
Go lay by the pool, get a release.
I think if you look at it in the adult world, we work, if you're working a full-time job, and most of us are, we're 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And then you get to go home. And then the home life starts, right? Then we got dinner, if you got young kids, you have bath time, bedtime routines, whatever. But you do have to have a break from this stuff to be a kid. There's not a lot of kids. Some kids will say, yeah, I love it, because they know if they don't say they love it, mom and dad are going to get upset at them. So the pressure is being put on from the parent, because that would go all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, that whole, I want to get that scholarship. And if I'm not on board with mom and dad's plan, it's just got to be about the kid. And that's kind of what we've been talking about today. It's got to be about the kid and what they want. And, not every kid is a gym rat. Ashlyn Shade was a gym rat. Sydney Parrish was a gym rat. I had her play up on my 6th grade team as a 4th grader. She was the best player on the court, not just on my bench, but she was only filling in for a couple of games, But I can recall when she was young, we would be at practice and she was in there. She had an older sister who went on to swim at Kansas, but I think her older sister played. And Sydney was in there shooting baskets as, 6, 7 years old. And it was, I told her dad, Sean, when we were about, I think it was when she filled in for me. I said, if that kid continues on her path, she's going to win Miss Basketball. And he said, hey, pump the brakes. And I said, Sean, I know you played at Ball State. I'm telling you what I see. I see a lot of kids play. I'm like, this kid has it. And what happened? 7, 8 years later, she was Miss Basketball. She won the state title. So, but yeah, you got to give the kids a break. Let them be kids for a while.
Yeah, I mean, and I like one thing that you brought up. You said it earlier, and I meant to circle back to it, and you just mentioned it again. The expectation. One thing that I made sure that I told all 3 of my kids. My son played. My oldest son, he dibble-dabbled in the sports world, has a state ring at Cathedral in football, played with Terry McLaurin, who was with the Redskins. See how old I am? He was with the Washington football team.
You can't say that.
Yeah, you can't say that. But, so, and him, and then with my daughter, then with my son, I've always told them, don't play this game or don't play the sport because you think it makes me happy. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
especially for my daughter, because she played the sport that I extremely love. Like, I'm a football guy, but I love basketball. And she was the same way. And I wanted to make sure she knew early on, just like my boys, don't play because you think this is what I want. What I want is for you to be happy. If you stop playing basketball, or if you stop playing football, or if you stop playing ultimate right now, I wouldn't give two rats' asses. Wouldn't care
Yeah,
less.
and if you're doing it because the parent wants you to do it, then do you really enjoy it? And if it's not fun, don't do it. And
Yeah.
talking about, I wanted to make this comment, and I hope that there's some parents watching this, and I say this from my years of experience with this. Don't get in the car and start coaching your kid up on what they should have done or could have done, and just tell them, hey, I love watching you play. Don't have that conversation in the car right after the game. So it's just, we talked just a second ago about giving that break, getting in the car and telling them what they should have done in the game. They know what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to make baskets and not turn the ball over, right? They know that, but that stuff happens. So don't get in the car and start coaching them up on what we should have done and what we're going to do differently tomorrow. They know this stuff, believe it or not. They know.
I am definitely guilty of that. I am 100% guilty of that because, you know what I mean, that's the trainer coach of me. I want to get right at it. Like, hey, listen, I got better. I got better as we got along. You know what I mean? I waited, you know what I mean, just a few hours, but then I'll try to tie it into conversation, but I was definitely guilty of that. So we get in the car,
Hey,
like, what are you doing?
I had to learn. I had to learn the hard way, and I changed my coaching style early on because as a third grade coach, I went Bob Knight on my own kid, and afterwards, my assistant coach came to me and said, "Hey, you can't do that," and I'm like, "You're right." So I had to change how I was doing things. It gave
I
me a
made her
different
quit a
perspective.
couple times. I made her quit. Like she's quit like 4 or 5 times doing training.
Like, I'm
She's
done.
like,
I'm done.
So yeah. And the last thing I'd say about that mental health when you add in those pressures, one thing I see a lot. I saw it a lot when I watched some of my friends. My friends didn't do it, but I saw watching some of my friends' kids play and watching my daughter play. And then especially when you come off the sideline or when you come off the referee outside of those 90 feet and you come out and sit, you see it. And this is one thing that I see a lot, and I wish parents wouldn't do it. And I make sure that I did not do it from the jump. My failed dreams are your push successes. You know what I mean? Like, just because I didn't do what I was supposed to do, just because these doors weren't open for me and I didn't walk through them like I should have, just because I didn't make it, is not going to mean that I'm going to force you to make it. And that falls into that same thing. It's like, I don't care if you quit playing sports today. Or you going to do something, but you don't have to play. If you quit playing today, then you just quit playing today. It's not that I'm not going to love you any less or anything. It's just that you don't play a sport. Simple.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not the kid's responsibility to carry out the parent's dream. It's the kid's responsibility to carry out their dream. And those that have the dream and the desire and the work ethic, they'll get there.
Mm-hmm. It's like I did mine. I did my time. I had my years in college. I did my time. I became a playground legend. I did it. It's over with. I'm crippled and old now, and I'm done. This is your shot.
Hey, as a 25-year, my wife will tell you, if she came in here on camera right now, she will tell you, I have been trying to retire from officiating for the last 5 seasons, and I am as close as I have ever been this year due to my body is telling me it's time to go. So my comment to that is, Father Time is undefeated, bro.
Yeah, he's gonna catch up to all of us at some point in time. Man, there we have it, man. That's all I got for today, man. Now it's time to get to some of this NBA playoff basketball. So I appreciate you coming on and hanging out with me and talking about a little sports and stuff like that. You're always welcome on any of my shows. This one, my football show coming up or in the fall when we get back to the Dukes of football. You know what I mean? So you're welcome anytime to come on and hang out with us and share, sports stories or whatever.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. And if you do another basketball one, I know we intended to kind of get into the officiating side of things, but I'd be happy to come back on and do this again. It was fun. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. All right. Appreciate you. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of Just Sports. Let's talk about it. You can catch any of our shows, any of our replays of our shows over on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search BW Sports 1, and you find all of our beautiful faces. Make sure you check out some of our great sponsors, Checkered for Life Customs, Elite Performance, TheOne's Kitchen and Catering, Inner Beast Sportswear, Southern Indiana Combat Sports, Doc Sports, My Bookie, The Fighter's Friend, Deals Discount Store. Check all of those sponsors out. You get some good stuff. Tell them BW Sports 1 sent you. And just a little heads up for the next show. I think we're going to do MMA versus boxing. Who is more prominent? Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. TheOne. I'm out.